The Cherokee County Chamber of Commerce and the Cherokee Office of Economic Development are pleased to host this webinar for you today. My counterpart is Misty Martin, and Misty is the president of the Cherokee Office of Economic Development, and she would like to welcome you as well. And then I will be introducing our speaker today. So Misty's going to give me just a second to get back over to the correct screen, and I am going to unmute her microphone. But y'all know that we have lots of folks on this call, and so Misty, I've got to scroll down and take care of yours, and you should be set.
All right. Good morning, guys. It's nice to see some of you. Well, like Pam, our office is trying to figure out how to work remotely, and though our doors are closed to our office, we are all ready and willing and able to help you. You may have a screaming kid in the background, or in my case, anybody get something out of the pantry, but we're learning how to do this together. So thanks for being with us today, and thanks to you, Daniel, from KSU SBDC, for your willingness to share some light on these resources to help our businesses. I did want to mention that both the Chamber and our office have COVID-19 page on our websites, on our home pages. So ours is CherokeeGA.org. Make sure that you check those out. Mercer from our office is updating that round the clock. We also have a career page, and you might have noticed from our social media recently that we were promoting some open jobs that had open up at the Airport Commerce Center Park. So that was shared times across social media. So we know that there's a lot of folks that are looking for jobs right now, and as soon as will be on hot jobs on our website and also promoted via social media. I did also want to mention, if you have friends and loved ones that have lost their jobs during this time, we do have our career show that's been scheduled for August 26th, and we'll continue to promote any open jobs that we have on the careers section of our website until that point, and let's all hope that that we've bounced back this summer. We're going to continue to team up with the Chamber to offer opportunities that help your business, and so we do have another webinar scheduled for next week, and we'll give you all the details of that at the end of today's webinar. But thank y'all for being here today, and please know that you can reach out to any of us on our team at any time if there's anything that we can help you with. Pam, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Misty. And we, like Misty said, do have that information, as COED does, on our webpage, that resource page, if you will. And information was posted there last night, the executive order from the governor's office, as well as the handbook, if you will, that's relative to safe sheltering. So you can find that information. It was also emailed to our membership last night and posted via social media. So you are here to hear from Daniel McCoy. Daniel is with the Kennesaw State University Small Business Development Center. He laughs and says that's the KSU SBDC, and some people look at him and say, okay, you got to give me more information. So that's the Kennesaw State University Small Business Development Center. And Daniel has been on their team since 2017. He is here at our office one day each month to visit with folks that either are looking to start businesses or are in business and have questions. It's all complimentary, those services are. And if you were not aware of that, you need to take advantage of that. You schedule those appointments through the SBDC, but then Daniel can meet you here at our office. Prior to joining the team at KSU, he spent 21 years in the financial industry, SBA lending. So he definitely understands the process of what is happening right now. I don't think anyone can say that they understand what we're all dealing with, because it's something new every day. And I think that, as we've all tended to say, we're all in this together, and we are, and we're going to pull through it together as well. So Daniel, we appreciate you taking time from your schedule today to join us, to present. And so I'm going to access Daniel's microphone, and then I am also going to provide you with his presentation, and we can, if Daniel's okay with this, we can provide not only the video recording of today's session and any additional questions to you via email, but Daniel, if it's permissible, we can also share your presentation with them to have for their use as well. So let me just mention that now that the presentation is on the screen, that if you want to remove the panel, if you will, of the boxes that you would see there, which are participant names, attendee names, if you want to remove those, you can click on video options at the top of your screen and hide video. And you would have to be in the full screen mode in order to do that. And again, if you have technology questions throughout the presentation, please submit those via chat, and one of the ladies from the chamber team will respond to you. And don't forget to submit your questions as well so that we can orchestrate that process after your presentation, Daniel. So all again for being on the call, and let's get rolling.
All right, good morning, everyone. So we'll predate this just a little bit. On March the 17th, there was the Family First Act, was passed by both houses, and President Trump signed into that effect, which said the SBA gave the SBA the authority to do direct lending between small businesses and themselves, foregoing the financial institution. It's called the Emergency Injury Disaster Loan that you see on your screen. To be honest with you, the first week, it lived up to its name. It was a disaster. The website was slow and cumbersome. There was a lack of bandwidth, and there was issues from day one. Luckily, on March the 27th, the CARE Act, which is the Corona Aid, Relief, and Economy Security Act, was passed, which took that basically threw away all the applications from that previous one, and was able to update with an expanded version of it. So we're going to go through we're going to go through both of those programs, the EIDL and the PPP, Protection Program, which falls under the CARE Act, okay? But the first thing that I want to mention is a terrific portion of the CARE Act. So if any of you sitting out there currently have SBA loans outstanding, under this CARE Act, the SBA is going to make your payments for you for the next 6 months. Not only that, if you have one impending and you're waiting to close on that, this goes into effect and will affect all new loans up until September the 27th of this year. So, you know, if you've been thinking about starting that business or you want to buy that building, this is sort of an extra incentive. This is not a forgivable portion or anything else. This is direct payments. So if you have an SBA loan outstanding, you have are about to close on an SBA loan, your first 6 months will be, the payments will be made for you by the SBA themselves. So a little stimulus there to get business rolling again. And that's really what this is all about, is getting the economy back to a stable situation. Okay, so we're going to talk about the EIDL, the first loan that was guided under the Disaster Relief Act, the Family First Act, back in the middle of the 1st of March. So what the EIDL is, truly it's a loan, it's a disaster loan between the SBA and the business owner. The SBA is typically not a lender. It is acts as a guarantor for your SBA 7As or 504s. But in disaster situations and previous disasters as well, hurricanes, tornadoes, or things like that, they will make direct loans between the affected small businesses and the SBA. So this process is strictly through their website. The website is disasterloan.sba.gov. And as of Monday, it became very, very, very easy. A lot of my clients are saying, something's wrong, this is way too easy. I know I didn't do the right forms. Well, it is that simple. Less than 10 minutes, 2-page questionnaire, okay? So in order to be eligible, you have to have 500 employees or less. So you have to be a small business, okay? There are guidelines as to what your sales total has to be. Those are under your NACIS code, North American Industrial Coding System. Typically for like a retail operation, your sales can't be over 8 million. At one location, they are allowing diversification on that so that if you have 2 or 3 locations, it's not a cumulative, it's a per location size. So the loan itself is up to $2 million. The interest rate is 3.75 fixed, and that's up to a 30-year term. Now, there's a lot of up-tos in there, and that's because the SBA is driving this. And they're going to set the loan amount. They are going to set the term, and the rate is fixed. One of the things they added under the new program, under the CARES Act, is an advance. So even if you fill out the application, and according to the verbiage of the SBA, if we have a successful application and you click that you want the advance, then you will receive it within 3 business days up to $10,000. Again, up to. So even if you don't get this loan, if you're declined, that advance, whatever it is, does not have to be repaid, okay? And one of the things that small business owners, also sole proprietorships, gig businesses can apply for this as well, okay? So for those that are looking for immediate money, that's what this is about. The advance is to get money into your hands as soon as possible. This is a working capital loan, so it can be used for payroll costs, or it can be used to pay vendors that you haven't been able to pay. The only thing basically that you cannot use this money for is to pay off existing debt, because this is such a better interest rate. As I mentioned, the advance does not need to be repaid. However, if you go into the other program, the PPP, it is a forgivable portion on the PPP loan, and we'll get into that in just a moment. The key is that this application is out there through the end of this year, so you're not under a time crunch, but obviously we're hoping everything gets back to normal and we will be able to get everything going and rolling again, okay? So the next program that came out under the CARE Act is the Paycheck Protection Program. So this one, this loan is up to $10 million. However, what the SBA has set up is this is it is really geared towards that protection and bringing workers back into the workforce. As the director of the SBA said yesterday, our goal is not to lose an employee, okay? So the way this has been established is the loan amount will be up to $10 million, or the lesser of 2.5 times your monthly payroll. For example, if you have a monthly payroll of $10,000 a month, and that's averaged over a certain period, then your maximum loan amount would be 2.5 times that, which would be $25,000. So that would be the most that you could borrow under this plan. Now there is a portion that we're following up on, that if you have a bridge loan, the express bridge loan, or that can be rolled to cover, you can do the bridge loan and basically pay the bridge loan off with this. However, those bridge loan funds, just like these funds, need to be used for payroll, utilities, and rent. And we'll get into that in a second. So what this does is, so you've got 2.5 times, $10,000 payroll, $25,000 loan amount maximum. There's a forgivable feature in this. So once you receive the funds, okay, you have 8 weeks of the money to be paid for those things I mentioned: payroll, rent, and utilities. Okay, 8 weeks is 2 months. So you've got 2.5 times. So basically you're being given 2 months of payroll and then a half a month of payroll for your other expenses such as rent and utilities to be forgiven. So you get your money day one, you go out 8 weeks, you take your documentation back to your lender. And this loan is between you and a bank. It is not a direct between you and SBA. SBA is telling the lenders, we're going to guarantee these loans up to 100% of the loan. So the lender really is comfortable in making these. Some of them are, some of them aren't. So some of them aren't participating. So, but you take your documentation back to the lender after 8 weeks. The lender will take that documentation, forward it to the SBA. The SBA will cut a check for that amount of money back to the lender, and that amount of the loan will be then forgiven. So up to 100% of the loan. So you could actually borrow the money, pay your 2 months of payroll plus some of your rent and utilities, turn that back into your lender, and that amount will be completely forgiven. Okay, so there are some guidelines as far as this loan, but again, they're stretching this program out for sole proprietors or independent contractors, for those type of individuals that normally wouldn't be associated with an SBA loan. Then further down, they are waiving some things on this one that there's no personal guarantees required. There's no collateral involved on this one. They're waiving some affiliations, especially for restaurants. If you have, say you own 2 or 3 different Moe's or 2 or 3 different Zaxby's or whatever, the fact that you have the multiple locations does not disqualify you from applying for each. So there's a lot of, they're going to allow electronic signatures for the first time on an SBA loan. So that's a benefit on that. Okay. All right. So here's a comparison of the different programs that are out there. One of the keynotes that we have been seeking clarification on and hope to have that determined today is under the EIDL. You will notice the collateral line. Okay. So under the CARE Act, what they said is that no personal guarantee would be now required on an EIDL up to $200,000, but they did not address the collateral act, the collateral portion. So originally the loan stated anything up to $25,000, they would not require collateral. Anything above, they would seek any available collateral up to the amount of the loan, which is an old rule that SBA had previously, but they had reinstituted it. There's a lot of confusion out there because it does not address the collateral rule in the CARE Act, but it does address the personal guarantee. So how can, if you're not personally guaranteeing it, how can you be forced to offer collateral? So we're awaiting clarification or guidance on that. And as you can imagine, this passed Friday last week at 4 o'clock. So the SBA, as of yesterday morning, they were still scrambling, trying to put all of this stuff together to send out to the lenders who were supposed to go live today. So I've talked to several lenders. As Pam mentioned, I was in lending for 21 years. I did SBA lending for 3 years. Probably 60% of my clients come through lenders that are needing loan packaging and projections. So I've got a wide contact with lenders. I talked to several of them today that they're scrambling. They're putting up portals. Some of them will not go live till Monday. They are only dealing with their clients. So I do have a few non-depository lenders that will assist those that have a credit union or a bank that might not be participating. So let us know. But the collateral issue, we're hoping to get clarification on that. It's all over the board, people saying things. And that's one of the things we wanted to address today, is there's a lot of misinformation going on as to, well, I hear, I'm getting a $10,000 grant. Unfortunately, it's up to. I hear that, I can borrow however much I want and it's going to be forgiven. You can't. It's tied strictly to that payroll. So, we want to set the record straight and follow up. And with that, Pam, I think we can open it up to questions if Brandy's ready.
All right, so give me just a second and I'll get back to where I need to be. And thank you so much, Daniel. Very valuable information. And I hope that it did generate some questions for you. And I've been texting with Brandy. I said I'd rather not have to see what's going on in the chat room, we'll call it. So Brandy should be on our line now. So Brandy, did we get some questions?
Yeah, we got lots of questions rolling in. So I will just start them at the top and we're going to work our way down. Some of them may be repetitive and some of them may have already covered. But we have been multitasking behind the scenes. So if I repeat any of these questions, we apologize. But the first question that came in says, if employees are paid as independent contractors, is the business eligible for the PPP loan?
All right,
Okay,
Daniel,
so-
are you here? Is Brandy breaking up on you as well, or only was that on my end?
No, it sounds like she's getting a reverb on it, a feedback on it. I sort of understood the question. She's asking about 1099 versus the straight payroll. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, our 1099 employees covered.
So in that question, it depends on who's applying. The 1099 is considered an independent contractor, so they can apply themselves. If you have a business where you are paying 1099s, most of the bankers that I've spoken with, that will not be taken in consideration as payroll, because the independent contractor, you would have double. You would be covering double payroll because the independent contractor themselves can apply. So it's the statute is pretty clear on it, but it does say there is always with the Congress, there seems to be possibly there's in the statute itself, it says there are any other compensation is a way I believe the statute read. I actually have the statute available as well. So I can tell you, but anyway, my answer would be that from the lenders I've spoken with, that 1099 would be eligible to apply themselves. So no, they wouldn't be considered an employee or your payroll.
All right, perfect. We're going to switch to Jenny from our team, who is going to ask the question, and we'll see if we can work on that audio issue. Remember, we're all working from all points of the county. We say that Brandy works in the Valley office, which is up in the Salicoa Valley. So he works she lives near Knox Elementary. So that's our West Side office. So Jenny, you should be ready to ask a question.
Okay, perfect. And Daniel, I was not able to hear exactly what you answered then, so tell me if you already answered this, but I applied for the EIDL loan and grant on Monday and received a confirmation code, but have heard nothing back. Now the SBA website says they're going to start accepting applications today. Do I need to reapply?
Okay, so there are two different things. The EIDL is the emergency injury disaster loan that if you applied on Monday, that's the new application, and there should be the very last box on that. You check, that's the one that you can get the advance on. What is opening up today, President Trump on Monday or Tuesday in his coronavirus address said that the PPPs would be ready to go today. So that's the loan through the lender, okay? So those will be available today if the lender is up and ready to take those applications. So you're fine on the PP, on the emergency disaster loan. There's, if you've got an application number, then you're good. Okay, they have not sent out any further email, any further contact. They are inundated, needless to say. So now the question being, can you have both? And I think I saw that earlier. The official word is no. Okay, here's the sort of caveat. In the statute itself, there is language that we are trying to get direction on that says you can refinance it into the existing, into the PPP. So we're getting direction on that, hopefully later this afternoon. The EIDL, the decision period itself is somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks. So if you put an application in, you're probably not going to hear from the SBA for a couple of weeks, and then they might ask for additional documentation, but a decision on that loan will not be made for 3 to 4 weeks. Once that decision is made, they will prepare paperwork to email to you. So that's another week. So we're now talking 4 to 5 weeks. Once that's done, then you get the documents, sign them, scan them up, email the original, or send the original ones back. So now we're 6 weeks out. The PPP, you will get notification on being approved within a couple of weeks. If that's the case and the PPP is a better fit for you, then all you have to do is discontinue the EIDL loan. You can cancel that loan all the way up to disbursement date. So that would be, the benefit of the time period. You're going to be, I've recommended to all of my clients, file for the EIDL. Then when the PPP becomes available, file for it. Let's see which one works the best for you. If in fact you can roll that into the PPP, and that portion of it being forgiven, then that would make sense. Okay.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, will denial for EIDL go against your credit score on your credit report?
No, it shouldn't, because number one, you're doing this pretty much in the business name. There's no personal guarantee required on the EIDL, so there shouldn't be any adverse credit effect on that.
Is the grant provided upon loan approval or just application submittal? I'm hearing it both ways.
Okay, so the advance, we don't call it grant. I got in trouble the first week for that. So the advances, according to the SBA's website, is upon completion of upon a successful application, exact words. Okay, so it is on the application. All right, what is successful? Is that when they look at it, or is that when, I take it when you completed it? But a lot of people completed it Monday and have not received an advance in their paycheck, in their checking account yet. So we anticipate that there's going to be a waiting period. The website said in 3 business days. So if they completed it Monday, they should have saw it last night. It is not upon being approved for the EIDL, because it clearly states you can be declined for the EIDL and still keep the advance. You do not have to repay that.
Okay, what does the EIDL need to consist of? Is it additional to payroll?
Right. So the EIDL does not mention payroll at all. Okay, the EIDL is on gross revenues and cost of goods. So it's calculated basically. The word we're interpreting is what is your gross revenues and cost of goods. So it's probably going to be, their formula has to do with something with your gross profit. The PPP is going to be the one that you are concentrated on, the payroll. So they're going to look at, if you've been in business for quite a while, they're going to take the period of January 1 through June 30th of 2019, what was your payroll cost for that period? Take that and average it out, and that, that's going to be your multiplier. However, if you're a seasonal employee or seasonal employer as determined by the SBA, then they're going to take the full year, look at the payroll cost for the full year, average that down to a monthly basis, and that will be the determinant. Now, if you have employees making over $100,000, you have to back out the portion that is over $100,000 in that monthly calculation. So for instance, you got someone making, 120,000, then there's 20,000 that you have to back out before you can figure out what your payroll cost is. So that 20,000 would be divided by 12. You take off 1 month of that calculation. So, to figure out what your month payroll costs were.
Okay, so hang with us for just a minute.
Sure.
Misty, I am going to unmute you and Nicole as well from our office. And if they will, they're going to help us with just a couple of the questions too. So bear with me just a minute. And
while you're doing that, Pam, I'll go ahead with the next one. And Daniel, you may have mentioned some of this as we went, because some of these questions, were coming in early. But
Sure.
One of the questions was, what about rent, utilities, health insurance, and 401k employer match?
Okay, so the 401k employer match would be part of the payroll calculation. I believe that would be depending on which loan we're talking about. Okay, the benefits are considered in that on the PPP in that 2.5 calculation, so I assume that's what they're referring to is, what are the numbers that are actually being used to determine that total payroll cost. The taxes, payroll taxes, all of that would be added into that calculation. So, when you go to your lender is going to look at those numbers, and he's basically going to be able to tell you what amount you would look at. On the other one, the EIDL, payroll will not figure in at all. It's just off of revenue and cost of goods.
Okay, so the next question was, can you do EIDL and PPP both at the same time?
You can. You just somewhere down the line, you're going to have to choose between which one is most beneficial for you. So, the EIDL makes sense to just go ahead and get the application in. If you're going to get in advance, and if you don't take the loan, you don't have to repay it. So, that would be, if you do take the PPP, that would be added on top of the forgiveness portion. So, I definitely recommend you do the EIDL, at least do the application. Okay.
okay. And hang on, we're going to have another one coming up.
All right.
Okay,
Hey, Misty.
go ahead, Misty.
In your opinion, Daniel, for different sectors of business, such as if you have a manufacturer versus a service-related business, is one better than the other?
Depending on the size of manufacturing, because a lot of my small manufacturing, a lot of them use 1099s. And that's where you're running into, and a lot of them do a disbursement at the end of the year instead of W-2ing themselves. So that's going to affect payroll as well. There is, I would say, of the two programs, the forgivable feature, the PPP, makes it very attractive. Even if you don't use all of the money and, you know, a 0.5% interest rate for 2 years. So if you don't use the money and it's, you know, or it's not all forgiven, at the end of the year, it converts to a 2-year note at 0.5%. That's half of a 1%. So, you know, it makes that's attractive in itself. But for manufacturing, I would say, you know, if it's a sizable company, if 50 employees or more, the PPP, because of the forgiveness factor, will be major. Same thing, I've got a restaurant owner that has 4 restaurants. He just, you know, this 2 months worth of pay is going to be very substantial for him for those 4 restaurants if they're up and running. You know, there's an issue, you know, there's some discussion on how are we going to bring those employees back? Because as you know, there's incentive on unemployment right now. So you know, are they going to come off of unemployment in order to come back to work for him at probably less money than what they're with the stimulus check, what they would be making. So that ramp up time, those 8 weeks, you have until the end of the 8-week period to get your staff back to where it was the year before. Now, one thing I will mention on that, the PPP, is if you, that period January through June of last year, if you had 10 employees, you have 8 weeks to get back to 10 employees. If you're 25% or more reduced in staff, so instead of having 10 employees, the end of that 8-week period, you only have 5 employees, that forgiveness of that portion will be reduced based on what percentage you are under 25%. Okay, so instead of getting your entire payroll figure forgiven, it will be reduced because you have a reduced staff compared to what you had last year. All right, but you have up to that 8-week period to ramp back up. So day 1, when you get the money, doesn't mean you have to be full staff day 2. You have 8 weeks to get back to where you were the year before. And that's what this whole Paycheck Protection program is about, is getting people back to work, getting your staff back to where it was.
Okay, is the payroll calculation for PPP based just on gross payroll, or does it also factor in employee share of FICA and payroll taxes?
It factors those in as well.
So if you're using for payroll, then if you are claiming unemployment for your staff, then do you need to come off of unemployment?
Okay, so the calculations are based on last year. Or if you weren't open last year, they're based on January through the end of February of this year. So when you go forward, once you get the money, you have to be back staffed within that 8-week period. Okay, so they're going to have to come off unemployment within that 8-week period for them to be considered your staff. So the calculation is based on dollars. The forgiveness and the penalty for not being fully staffed is based on the numbers that you had last year versus the numbers you have at the end of this 8-week period after you're funded. Does that make sense?
Does the PPP extend to 1099 employees?
Again, the 1099s are can file for this themselves. So you cannot use it in your calculations because they can file as gig workers or entrepreneurs or sole props or whatever their designation is. So our understanding as of right now is that 1099s, if you're paying a 1099, that would not be included in this. Now that is trying to be interpreted as we speak, and we hope to have further clarification by the time we meet again. And I can send it out as soon as I get it. I can send it to Pam and she can forward it to people on the call. Because it's a question that everyone's asking, you know, do I include what I'm paying out to 1099s? So, but 1099s can file too. So, it's a double whammy there.
One question was, am I understanding that PPP and EIDL are two totally different amounts in loans? Both you can apply at the same time? And I think you might have answered that earlier.
They are entirely two different ones. However, you can't have both. Okay. So some of the lenders are rolling the EIDL into the PPP. But again, we recommend that you go ahead and get your EIDL application in just for the advanced portion, but you have, basically you're going to have 6 weeks to stop that process and say, okay, I'm going with the PPP, you know, forget that one and move forward. Or if if you're turn out you're ineligible for the PPP, you have at least got the advance from the EIDL and you might be eligible for it.
Will 941s be adequate for payroll backup?
That is a requirement. Most banks are also requiring your last year's tax returns as well. So and those numbers will be reflective on typically are reflective on your tax returns. But everybody I've seen is requiring the 941.
Okay, since I'm considered an essential business, will I qualify for any of these loans?
Sure, any business that is in the, is US based, and there's a couple of, there's a couple of little far out things that you might not be eligible for, but typically 99% of the businesses will be eligible for this, as long as it's considered a small business, 500 employees or less, meets the NACIS code stipulation. And there's some special rules just for restaurants in there as well that they've expanded their eligibility. So affiliations is thrown out the window and things like that. So yes.
Can you apply for the loan again if the amount of time we are mandated to close is extended?
I think that, that is a moving target because, for instance, the June 30th is the deadline for applying for the PPP. The deadline for applying for the EIDL is December 31st. But at the same time, they're talking the 8-week payroll period ending June 30th. Well, if the application deadline is June 30th and the 8-week period ending June 30th, then there's confusion there. But I think that they will extend it definitely. Obviously, the application date, as was on the slide, is June the 30th for the PPP. So they're going to have to change the verbiage on the 8-week period thing. So, but yes, so you've got all the way out, and I'm sure if things do not progress as expected and we're still closed from June, that they will make that adjustment as well.
Okay.
Okay.
One of the previous questions that was asked, he said he wasn't asking about the PPP. The SBA site said the EIDL apps would start being reviewed today, which has changed since last Monday.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen that, but yeah, we were told that, in the of Tuesday, everything was still electronic. The EIDL is going to be very heavy credit score driven. Okay, so they're not going to be, they're probably not even, going to ask for tax returns or anything like that. So if they're reviewing the applications as of today, then they're a day late because people applied Monday, they should have got their money last night. So I'm sure that that's good news for us, that we should be seeing some funds hitting some people's accounts from the advance. But the application, anyone that has filled it out, it's super simple. It's really just basic questions.
All right, let's take one, maybe two more questions, and then we will work through those that are still in the chat to determine those that maybe were repeats from another one of our attendees. And then, like I said earlier, we'll send the remaining questions to Daniel. He'll respond via email, and then we'll get those responses out to you. So let's hear another one or two, and then we'll wrap up the call today.
Can you modify an EIDL app if we do not check the advance box?
You can, if you have, if you applied previously to Monday, they threw all of those applications away. So if you applied before this last week, before Monday, then you need to reapply, okay? As far as modifying an existing application, I haven't seen any directive on that. I'm sure you received a number, so you should be able to pull that application back up. But that's when I'll have to check. I don't want to give you false information. So I'm not sure on modifying it. But if you did apply before that question was available, then your application was discarded and you need to go reapply.
What is your recommended course of action for sole proprietorship? EIDL Advance plus PPP?
Yes, that would be, my recommendation. That's my I'd set an alarm just in case. So that would be my recommendations. Do the EIDL first, and then go ahead and contact your lender. And again, most lenders are saying they're going to take care of their clients and their customers first. So if you have a checking account or any type of relationship with a lender, reach out to them before you try to reach out to someone that you've never banked with before. Now there are some people, as I mentioned, several of the credit unions already said they're not going to participate in this. So there are some non-depository lenders. We have a couple that we work with, Celtic Bank, a couple others, one out of Florida. So let us know if you're not able to use your banking institution. We can find somebody for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel. I hope that you all agree that today's information was valuable. I know that if you're a visual learner like me, you want that handout to be in your inbox later today so that you can go back and refresh your mind over that. We'll also make sure, and I'm just going to say this, and then if Daniel falls out of his chair, then we hope someone's at wherever he is to pick it up, but I'll include his email address. Does that sound good, Daniel?
There you go.
Okay, I'll include his email address, and I'm sure he'd be happy to ask or answer additional questions. There are quite a few questions left in the queue, though, and so we'll get those out to you as well as the recording from today's session. But again, on behalf of the Cherokee County Chamber of Commerce, and Misty's going to come back on and thank you as well from COED, but on behalf of our team, thank you for all you're doing to create still that attempt at stable normalcy here in our community. And those of you that are in essential businesses, that's hard to say because to me, everybody is essential. And so to say that, but to those of you that are still in a situation where you're going into your functional office, your regular office every day, and those of you that are out and about in making sure that customers have what they need, that your clients are cared for, thank you for what you're doing. If you see someone who's in the healthcare profession, in public safety, you should be thanking them. We all should be all the time, not just during this pandemic, but let me remind you to do that. And I think that's important. It's a time that we have to band together, and that's what Cherokee County does, and that's what Cherokee County is going to continue to do. So you'll receive an email from us later today. You can always visit CherokeeChamber.com for information from the resource page or what we have going on from a canceled perspective, a postponed perspective, what we're doing virtually. All of that information is there for you. The recording today will also be on the COED website on CherokeeGA.org. And with that, I'll ask Misty if she would close us out. All right, Misty, let's see. I think you can unmute yours. You can't. All right, that I thought I had left you unmuted. I apologize. Let me go back to you. Hang there, keep smiling. She's got a beautiful home. You can see what's going on at her house in her Macedonia office. Okay, there you go.
I thought she was going to say something about the oven being in the background that never gets used.
Oh, I've got one too. Mine's in shock.
Now I wanted to thank everybody for being here today. Daniel, thank you so much for going through all those details. It's so helpful. And I know I mentioned it earlier, we're going to be hosting with the Chamber again next week, a business resources webinar again. And so that's Wednesday, April 8th from 11 to 12. And we'll have Drew Tonsmeyer, that's also in the same office with Daniel, joining us, and Dr. Alfie Meek, who is with Georgia Tech, who is an economist. And so we're really anxious to hear from Alfie as well, to see what he's been researching, and maybe he'll have a crystal ball for us. I know everybody would like to see one.
That would be great. And you have a larger capability. Y'all have upgraded your version just ahead, and you've got more capability for attendees next week, I believe.
Yes, so we'll be able to accommodate 500. So
okay, perfect.
Hopefully we'll be able to fill that up.
Sounds good. I was on a call with the Georgia Chamber earlier this week. There were 1,000 slots, and they had to bump attendees for their speakers to get in. And so for a call they were doing yesterday, they enhanced that to 3,000 spots. I didn't get to be on that call. So all I know is we have been able over the course of the last hour to manage 92 people, and we couldn't have done that without the behind the scenes from our team at the Chamber and the team at COED. So thank y'all so much for being with us. Be on the lookout for that email later today, and we'll see you next week.